All right, we're going to start in 3. And it's, wait, really quick. It's Brandon Freeman, right?
Right.
Perfect. Okay. We're going to start recording in 3, 2. All right. It's time to talk with our featured guest, Brandon Freeman. Brandon, how's it going, man?
So far, so good. So far, so good. It's a little steamy up here in New England right now, but no complaints.
If we had to, if you were to give a recommendation like, hey, come visit at this time, it's the perfect week, perfect time, when would that be in New England?
I love springtime. I love springtime. It's kind of a little bit before now when things aren't too hot. Got plenty to do, and I think that's the time to be where we are. And
Nice.
we're south of Boston on the South Shore, about 20 miles south of the city, and I love it up here.
Yeah. That's nice, man. Awesome. Okay, so Brandon, if you could tell us a little bit about your past, your present, how did you get to where you are today?
So my background, individually and professionally, is on the business side of healthcare, and I've always been very interested in healthcare, but not in a hands-on way. Going way back, I thought I'd be a doctor, but didn't want to be the person working on patients, and so I pursued it from a business standpoint, and so I thought I'd get into hospital management, and after business school, I pursued that route for a while. But my wife, who's the real story, she's a dentist. And, we started our careers, in the early 2000s. She graduated in 2005 and did a residency. And while I was working in the business world of healthcare, in hospitals and insurance, she was doing dentistry. And as much as I liked healthcare, I was watching what she was doing, and it just seemed like, wow, a lot of bureaucracy in healthcare, as much as I love it, but dentistry allows you to be entrepreneurial and really do things the way you want to do them, from a marketing standpoint, from a patient care standpoint, just being able to get into new areas. So, shortly after she got into dentistry, I was a little jealous and kind of wanted to join up. And so, we had our first office she had her first office, I should say, in 2008. By 2013 or 14, we felt like we knew how to run a dental office. And at that point, we wanted to continue to grow. And our deal was, between the two of us, if we were going to add another office, I was going to really have to kind of shift my career from healthcare to dentistry. And so we joined up in 2015 with the addition of our second office, and the rest is history from there.
How many offices do you have right now?
So we have 4 offices right now, and it's a mix between general and specialty. It's a mix between acquiring offices and one startup, and we're trying to continue to grow. As long as we can do it in the right way, we want to continue to build.
Gotcha. Okay. So then why did you said 3 acquisitions, 1 startup. Why was that one a startup?
Startups are difficult. And it was always something that, I wasn't really keen on, because, when you're buying an office, right, you're spending a lot of money, but you're essentially going into a patient base that exists, an office that's already been running with a reputation, and good or bad, you can grow it from there. I've always thought that a startup just seems like a huge challenge, because you're starting from nothing. And so, you have to hire a dentist and say to them, well, I have no patients for you, but I'm trying to grow. And you just open your doors after spending all this money. And it's, I just kind of wondered, how do you do that? And so the opportunity came up that there was a dentist with a great location who had just kind of run out of space, and he was moving down the street by about a mile, and he was essentially selling a dental condo that was completely already set up. He was taking his chairs with him, but outside of that, it was a turnkey location. And for us, it just so happened that it was pretty centrally located with our other offices, and it just so happened that where our specialists were at the time, it was kind of far away and it was hard to draw in patients. And so we, took everything into account and started that as our specialty office. And it worked great because we could just relocate our specialists, and we had the immediate revenue generated from that. And then we built general dentistry on top of it. And as I said, I don't think that's ever easy unless you're in a market where it's just you have a shortage of dental care. But it's been, I don't want to say slow and steady. We've been aggressively trying to grow it, but that's it was just one of those circumstantial elements that we decided to pursue, and we're happy that we did it.
Gotcha, man. That's interesting. Okay, so we'll dive into that right now a little bit more, but I want to rewind a little bit. You decided to get into healthcare for the business side. So, I mean, why has the business side always intrigued you? Why is business? Where in your past have you been like, that's what I want to do, business?
So growing up, it was kind of I always liked the idea of being entrepreneurial, of starting something, on my own, or, with my wife, whatever the case may be. And so I like business. I mean, even when I was, in high school, I would read Fortune magazine and, Forbes, or, whatever the case may be. And I was kind of conflicted because I loved biology, I loved healthcare, and I wanted to do something where you're truly helping people. And so I thought that getting into the business of healthcare was truly a way to do both of those things. And so, growing up, I had a friend whose father was a hospital administrator. I studied what he did, and when I went to business school, we had a close affiliation with the hospital, and so I spent time at the hospital, working in various areas of management as part of my internships, and I just, I really enjoyed it, and I think that the technology has come into play more and more with healthcare, and so you can truly help people and be on the business side at the same time.
Yeah, definitely. And that kind of goes into the sense of like why you wanted to do a little bit more, right? As far as like build more and build more and build more, the entrepreneurial side of you. You also said that your wife had her first office in 2008, right?
Yes.
Now that was an acquisition.
Yeah. So we lived in North Carolina for a couple of years. That's where I did my business school, and we moved up right when I graduated in 2008. We'd also, I mean, she has a lot of entrepreneurial, kind of electricity in her too, and she wanted to own her own practice. She wanted to be able to, build a practice that had her name on it, and that she could really kind of take ownership of. And so in 2008, we moved back up to the Boston area where our families are. And we found this practice in this little town in Hanson, Mass. We'd never heard of it, even though we'd been living in Boston for a long time. And I remember the agent was taking us, down, kind of like, it seemed like we were going into the woods. It seemed like the middle of nowhere. But we got there, and it was this, it was just this little office in this little town, and it just felt right. And it was a dentist who was a wonderful guy. He was getting ready to retire. Allison, my wife, she was pregnant with our first child. We actually closed on the practice literally 7 days before my daughter was born, and so it was a great transition. The dentist stayed on there for about 3 months while my wife was taking care of our child, and it afforded us the flexibility so that the baby could be at the office sometimes, and she could feed the baby, and we both really kind of pitched in and made it work. But that's kind of where it started. It started in the little office in Hanson with the dentist who was retiring, who was a wonderful person, and we took it from there.
You guys found that practice through the agent, or was it more you guys did your own demographic research and things?
Yeah. So at the beginning, we didn't have relationships. We didn't have much of a dental network. I don't know how we were first put in touch with this agent, but he was a great guy. He actually found the second practice for us as well. And we worked with him, and he basically did everything from, facilitating the initial transaction to pairing us up with a dental consultant to help, to kind of teach us what exactly to do. Because for me, I had no dental experience whatsoever. And at that point, I wasn't even very involved. For my wife, she'd worked in a dental practice for 2 years when we were in North Carolina, but in dental school, you don't really learn anything. And I don't mean anything. You don't really learn much on the business side in terms of operating a dental practice. And so you have to know everything from, what is, credentialing to how do you submit a claim and how do you
Mhm.
get paid for the work you're doing. And so he was great. He set everything up, and we kind of learned as we went. But building those relationships and having those advocates for you early on, we found was extremely helpful.
Yeah. How was that dynamic, Brandon? Like, I'm sure your wife was like, "This is like." I'm sure both of you guys were like, "This is my baby." You know what I mean? Like, we're both building this up. Was there ever like a time, because we have a lot of people like that actually, who are like, okay, the husband's the business side or the wife's the business side, and the doctor was there ever a time where it was kind of like, no, I think I know what's best for this situation, and then, no, I do, and then, you know what I mean?
Well, we always joke because we have friends and they come to us and they ask a dental question, and of course I know something now, but nothing clinical, so I'm not going to jump in. But she always like makes a joke like, "Oh, why don't you ask Brandon?" But in any case, one of the hardest things I've found, and I think she would agree, as husband and wife, is you know we now have 3 kids, and coming home at the end of the day and kind of leaving work at work, and not focusing on that when you're at the dinner table trying to find out from your kids how their day was. But in general, I think we've had really good communication, and we're pretty aligned on where we want to go right now. She's pursuing kind of a new avenue for her professionally in terms of how she's going to practice dentistry. And we both have our goals, and I think with the communication we can kind of both get what we want out of life and business. And there hasn't been major conflict. We don't always agree on everything in terms of how to manage people, or even how to manage certain situations, but there's give and take like everything else.
Yeah, that's good, man. That's good. Okay, so then in 2008, you guys had your first office. Then 2014. Now, why in 2014 were you guys like, all right, I think we can do another one? What made you, I guess, come up with that idea?
Yeah, so again, in 2008, we didn't know which way was up when it came to running a dental practice. And Allison was doing everything by herself. She'd be up late at night, going over what she needed to do in QuickBooks with the accountant. And she was a one woman show. She did everything, and she did a wonderful job with it. Um, she at one point said, I need some help. I need to kind of understand how I can better run a practice. And so we did start working with some consultants and some groups to educate ourselves a little bit more. And we didn't even realize at the time, early on, like what you could get out of a dental practice in terms of what you could offer patients, but also the lifestyle you could build from being a dentist, both for yourself and for your teams. And so we started working with some consultants, and we learned. I mean, 2011 to 2013, we were learning a lot and just studying. And as I said, in that time frame, I started to get a little bit more involved, just because the consultancy was really focused on the business of dentistry, and so naturally I was interested in it. And so we saw the revenues grow from you know probably $750,000 when she bought the practice to more than doubling it over the next few years. And we felt like, wow, this is something that we can really do. There's no reason why we can't do this in another office, other than trying to hire more folks and getting an associate. That would be great. And so we felt at that point, well, why not? I was enjoying what I was doing in healthcare, but I was really passionate about the entrepreneurial elements of having our own place that we could really grow.
Gotcha. Okay, that's good. That's interesting. And so the consultants and groups that you worked with to educate yourself, could you give us some of the ones that you worked with?
Sure.
Yeah.
So early on, we worked with Blatchford Solutions, and they were really focused on lifestyle and work-life balance, and making the offices profitable and prolific, and they were great. And I would give them a ton of credit, and recommend them 100 times to other practices that are starting. Eventually we got to a place where with multiple offices, their business model, I think, at least at the time, was more focused on a single office setup. And so it it didn't work so much anymore. And then over the years, we've worked with some others. We've worked with D. Fisher and Fisher Pro, who we've worked with more recently, and she was wonderful, and she was really focused on systems, because at the time when we worked with her closely, that was right after we added the third office, and we went from a place where, for me personally, like, I needed some more consistency, and I wasn't the person who could order the paper towels every time anymore. We needed to have systems and practices and real ways to kind of monitor what was going on. And so those are the two consultancies that we worked with over the years that I think had the greatest impact. And I think that you learn as you go, as with a lot of things, but they were both wonderful to us and challenged us and helped us to grow.
Gotcha. How'd you find the consultants? Like, or I guess there's so many, right? And there's so many groups and things like that. So it's more like, how did you depend on, was it referral or?
So, we always try to do our homework and pair ourselves up with the right groups. I think Blatchford Solutions was actually a recommendation from one of Allison's classmates. She went to Tufts, and we're still in Boston area, and so there are a lot of her classmates that are still in and around the area that she stays in touch with. And I always think that maintaining relationships and networking is tremendously important and useful in both directions. But for something like that, talking to somebody you trust that has had experience with a vendor or a service or whatever, what have you, that's worked well. I mean, that's extremely helpful. And then with D. Fisher, we're part of a group called the DEO, the Dental Entrepreneur Organization, and it's a group that's grown a good amount over the years. And they focus on practices like us. I mean, small dental service organizations that are trying to grow, and I think they've done a great job in pairing, small businesses that are trying to grow with vendors and services that are helpful. And so we were at one of their events. I think it was probably in Phoenix, and I think it was probably 115 degrees outside. But we met Dee there, and she was wonderful. She came to our office regularly for a couple of years, and as I said, we learned so much from her, and her philosophies and the systems that we've implemented during that time and since then. And so we got paired up with her through that organization, and the DEO is another one that I think is really great.
Yeah. DEO, I hear great things about them. But awesome. Okay, so then from that point on, you open your second practice, and then was it like, okay, now we're doing what I want to do. Now this is what I'm talking about. Let's open up another one and another one. Or was it also what, maybe we can do a third one?
Well, so for me, and I said this from the beginning to Allison, I said, I'm not changing my career from, something that is really working out pretty well to do this for two practices. And we said at the beginning, we're not stopping there. That's not my goal. And we were in agreement. I didn't have to push her to get there with that, but the goal is always to grow. And I think the biggest jump though was from the two offices to the three, because with two offices, at least the way we were set up, we found a wonderful associate who was with us for about 5 years until she moved to the Midwest. But Allison and the associate kind of, both worked across the offices. So 2 days in Hanson, and then our other office location was in Cohasset. So, they worked Monday, Tuesday in one, and then, Wednesday, Thursday, and they just kind of alternated. And it worked well. It worked well for coverage, and, it worked well in a lot of ways. We've learned a lot from doing that, but, it worked well. So we had that going for us. And then, our collective goal was to continue to grow. And so, we put a lot of feelers out there, and, our goal at that point was not to even try a startup, but to find another practice with a dentist who was retiring. And so ultimately, I think it was our accounting office at the time who identified this practice for us. And so we met with the dentist who was retiring, another, similar situation. This practice was a little bit larger, and it did have specialty services. So it was going to be, a different element that we would have to learn and figure out. But that's how that came together. But then when we were 3 practices, that's really where, at that time is when we figured out, or we had to figure out how to build some infrastructure and how to create some consistency. Because, again, with the 2, Allison could kind of be in both places at once. I could kind of be in both places at once. But once you get to 3, that's when you really have to put some, other elements into place.
Yeah, that's interesting. I was going to ask you, like, what's the whole difference between, like, all right, we've finally opened practice number 1 up. Can you just copy and paste it and be like, all right, I already know everything for that point. Let's just do another one and another one? Or no, it's completely different?
Well, so I think 1 and 2 were, well, from the second office was essentially a copy paste. Everything was pretty much a mirror image of the first practice. I mean, the first practice was 4 operatories, the second one was 5. Outside of that, everything was pretty much the same hours, same doctors, same practices, same software, same everything. And it was easy. The third practice, it just, it was a whole different model. It was a different location. They accepted different insurance. They had specialists. So we had to really figure it out. And again, I made that joke about ordering the paper towels, but that's what I was doing at the beginning. I mean, I was doing the nitty gritty, with the hope that, like, all right, we're going to get beyond this at some point where I have, other team members who can help to kind of carry some of this weight. And so going to the third practice, we had to make a lot of changes. That was when I hired our first operations specialist, and he was a young guy who had just graduated from school. I think he had a background in contracting or whatnot, but great guy. And he became the guy that would order the paper towels and do some of those things so that I could kind of focus on how do we build the systems to really align the practices. And even things like the dental software and logging in. I mean, that was one of the areas where, having 3 practices, it was just so much more complex than 2, because there's only so many times you can use log me in to access your information, and only, so many times you can, look at data from different softwares and try to make sense of it. So we had to make a lot of changes at that point.
What changes did you make there when it came to the softwares?
So when it came to the software, we had done previously in practice 1, we used EagleSoft. That's what we inherited. That's what we figured out. That's what we came to know. And so in practice 2, they were using CareStream, something like that, whatever that one is called. And we quickly converted over to EagleSoft. And so we had so since both offices were EagleSoft, it was pretty easy. I mean, same reporting, same everything. As I kind of alluded to, we used Log Me In. When I was in Hanson, I could get the data from Cohasset and it would work okay. In Office 3, in Abington, they had been using Dentrix and, an older form of it. And so it's just dental software. You can say dental software is dental software, but it's really not. The way Dentrix is kind of based is very different from EagleSoft from an accounting standpoint, from a everything, nothing really aligns. And so you can get the same basic information out of it and figure out how to do that. And we were doing it, but from a business standpoint, it wasn't giving us the information that we needed. And so quickly we realized that we needed to go to a cloud-based solution, because we couldn't have all these remote logins, 1, and 2, we needed one software that was going to do everything for us. So at that point, we started exploring cloud-based softwares and kind of bringing everything under one umbrella.
Yeah. Yeah. Because that can be annoying, like having to log into 1, log into 2, and you're used to 2, but then now 3, right? Different type of, you had to get used to Dentrix. And then from that point on, log out, log in, log out, different reporting. So, I mean, what was the most annoying thing out of all that?
I mean, part of it was, related to the business transaction that we had on the third office, where, as part of it, we did not. I mean, when you do a dental transaction, I mean, it's there are a lot of components, but a big part of the question is always, what happens with the accounts receivable, the money that's supposed to come in for the selling dentist. What do you do with that? Do you buy it or do you not buy it? We made the decision that we did not want to buy it. So we were collecting it on behalf of the selling dentist, if that makes sense. And so we had a certain amount of run out that we needed to manage. and the Dentrix version that they were using was not the easiest to work with. So the most difficult part of it was kind of being committed to Dentrix for a period of time. It was a short period of time, but being committed to that while we were running these other softwares and our other practices, and just that they just didn't speak to each other in any way. And, the numbers and the adjustments that you make just were not aligned. So
Yeah.
really having an apples to apples way to look at the practices and how they're performing was not easy.
Got you. Would it have been easy just to be like, oh, let's get just another EagleSoft?
Yes and no. I mean, it would have been easier if it were EagleSoft, but still it wouldn't have been a cloud solution. What I was looking for was something that, I can log into and I could see any office, and I have, the ability to kind of run a report for Hanson or Cohasset or Abington, and, you know, get the data that I need, but have it be completely aligned in terms of the way it's being collected.
Got you. So out of the research you were doing, what'd you guys come up with?
For the software,
Yeah, for the cloud-based software.
so we looked at a few. We looked at Open Dental. We looked at there was a version of EagleSoft that was coming out at the time that was cloud-based.
Mhm.
But we kept on seeing the name CARESTACK pop up. A lot of folks had recommended it. It's a software company that was based out of Florida, and it was very young at the time. We started working with CareStack because they just gave us so much attention, and also their whole philosophy and their software kind of really blew us away. And their philosophy is that they really try to evolve. They want to push the market forward, and they try to be, they try to provide as many solutions for a dental office as you can. When we were using EagleSoft or Dentrix, we would have to use a lot of add-ons. We would have to use like Lighthouse 360 or Revenue Well to communicate with patients. CareStack came at us with this platform that was just, it could do everything. It managed the imaging and the clinical part of it. It had all the resources we needed to do for the patient engagement and communicating. It had a really nice analytics platform. And so, we were a little bit hesitant because they were so young and there weren't many offices, if any, at the time in Massachusetts that were using them. But we kind of jumped in with 2 feet because, the conversations we had with them were very impressive, and we spoke to a number of folks on their end. And so we decided to give it a shot. And I will say, we haven't looked back since then. I mean, your dental software is kind of, the heart and soul of your office. Everything is dependent upon it. And, for us, that's CareStack. I mean, we completely rely on it, from minute one when we get to the office to, the end of the day. And they deliver. And I will say, with in terms of all the companies that I've worked with over the course of time, they're a technology company that's truly forward thinking, one, but two, they truly take into account their customers and what their customers are looking for, and they listen. I've worked with them very closely over the 4+ years that we've been working with them, and they've been great in terms of developing and pushing forward with ideas. And now, I'll go to an event or a dinner with, our dental supplier Shine, and I'll be at a table and I'll mention CareStack, and, this person's using them and that person's using them and the other guy is too. And so CareStack has come a long way in a short time, and they've been great to us. With our newest office in Weymouth, Mass, the implementation there was just seamless and easy, and it gives you great peace of mind just being able to go into the office every day and, having that solution in front of you, being able to run my numbers like easily, having Allison being at home and getting an emergency call from a patient and just being able to log in and get everything she needs. It's been pretty great.
That's awesome, man. And yeah, I feel like it has to come down to something cloud-based anyways, right? Eventually with all these practices you plan to open up.
Yeah.
Huh?
There are offices that I've spoken to that have multiple offices, and they're still running Dentrix over here and EagleSoft over there, and whatever in a third place. I honestly don't know how they do it efficiently. And I think generally
Mhm.
speaking, they don't have the efficiency that they want. A lot of them are afraid to kind of take the leap and do the conversions because a dental software conversion is not easy. I think, some of them make it easier than others, but it's a project. I mean, number one, you have to make sure the data is right. Number two, you have to make sure that the team is trained so that they're ready for what's next and able to use what you're putting in front of them. But it's well worth it in the long run.
Yeah. Does CareStack charge more as more practices open up or no? Like for you?
I honestly am not sure of their model. I mean, you certainly for the services they provide, where it's claim submission and generating statements, things like that. There's a charge for each of those items. I do believe there is also a monthly charge for by office. Um, it, it's something that whatever it may be has been well worth it for us.
Yeah, definitely. I know it's super. I mean, it's all in one. It's an all-in-one platform,
Yeah,
right?
I mean, and again, instead of getting 50 bills from 50 places, I have one and it works.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Awesome. Okay, so one thing I wanted to ask you, we can rewind a little bit. You opened up 4 practices right now. The goal is really quick. How many in your mind?
You know, so the big project that we have going on right now is we're relocating one of our offices into a much larger facility, and it'll be, where we have our management offices, and it'll double the size of that office. So I would say I don't necessarily have a number in mind. I'd love to say, 10, 12 offices, something like that. I mean, we kind of have to see where things take us based upon the opportunities that are available. And again, growing in the right way. I mean, our goal is to always do right by our patients. It's to do right by our teams. It's to make sure that we're creating a great atmosphere for both. And as long as we can continue to do that with the resources we have, we'll continue to grow. And as long as I'm good enough to manage this, I'll continue to do it. But it's hard sometimes when people ask to put a number on it like that. But yeah, I'd love to be 10 practices.
Okay, awesome. So then question, how do you know you've squeezed out as much from one office to be like, this can no longer, this is it. We have reached the sky, not even this. We broke the ceiling. We reached the sky. We have to open second location
Yeah.
or sometimes are we like, we think we reached something, but we're just like, oh, let's go open up another one. How do we know?
Yeah. I mean, that's a great question too. I think, a lot of it is dependent upon, what you want to do with the location and what you want to do with your team. And so for us, I don't want to have weekend hours. I don't want to have evening hours. I want to have our teams have a good work-life balance. I know that there's more that we could get out of the offices if we were to do either of those things, but it kind of depends on what you want to do and how you want your offices to feel. And so, for us, I think a lot of it comes down to, do we have space in the schedule for more patients or do we not? I mean, if we have patients and, they're scheduling their next hygiene visit and we have to say to them, oh, we can't get you in for 8 months. That's not good. That's not good for, the patients. That's not good for us. I mean, you could say, well, your schedule is full. That's awesome, but that's not great patient care. And so I think when you get to that point, I think you'd ask yourself a couple questions. One, what is my insurance breakdown, and can I drop an insurance? Or two, is it time to kind of figure out how to expand in another direction? So for me, looking at the schedule is a huge part of it. Obviously, we look at more than that, and we look at production and profitability and all those pieces that go into it. But for my offices, making sure that I'm not working people to the point where they're just kind of frazzled. We got to balance that with what the schedule looks like. That makes
Gotcha.
sense.
Yeah, 100%. And I like how you said it. It depends on the individual, right? On what they want in their lifestyle. Because you could be like, I'm gonna evenings, early mornings, weekends, all that stuff, right? And then are we all like super burnt out, tired? And then we're like, okay, open up number 2. What's the goal there? I don't know.
Yeah. And I'll also say, like, I think, not to give commentary on anything that's going on in the world right now, but things are tough for people. I mean,
Mhm.
post-COVID, if we even consider ourselves post-COVID, which I don't think we are, I mean, it's tough. I mean, people have their own things going on, whether you're talking about, inflation or social unrest or, the environment. People, I feel like right now are kind of stressed. And so we're trying to be super sensitive to that. And, we always try to be supportive. We always have, and we always try to, provide pathways for everybody in their individual careers. But, we have to be mindful of, how hard people work in a dental office and what they get out of it, and how they're feeling from it.
Yeah. Yeah. Because that to me would be an easier, you know what I mean? Like I love working here. What's the name of your practices?
Beyond Dental Health is the umbrella name for the 4 offices.
Okay. So it'd be like, I love working at Beyond Dental Health instead of like, oh my gosh, I got like, I got to find somebody to replace me. You know what I mean? Like no days off. Do you even like working there anymore? You know?
Right. Well, we never want to be there. And I think, when we're hiring, we're specifically focused on, yeah, obviously we want great clinicians and talented folks, but we want people with a positive attitude because,
Mhm.
at the end of the day, people are working hard and they're spending 40 hours a week with, the same people, and having that positivity generated around you is so much more rewarding and energizing than, having people around you who are kind of coming in and burnt out and not feeling good about what they do. And everybody has bad days, everybody has bad weeks, but really trying to keep the team positive and focused. I mean, that's a big part of the challenge every day.
Yeah, that's pretty huge. So then right now, switching up really quick, what are you guys doing for marketing and advertising?
So for marketing and advertising, we're doing a few things. I mean, obviously, we have the website and we do, the online search with Google. We do a lot of social media through Facebook and Instagram. We do a little bit through LinkedIn also. We try to have a really strong local presence also. And I'll talk about that a little bit. One of the things that we do is we work with one of the health clubs that's local to us. It's called the Weymouth Club, but it's this gorgeous, like huge health club, and they're really focused on health. Obviously, it's a health club,
Mhm.
and so we've aligned ourselves with them, and they allow us to kind of set up tables there and just really have kind of like a local personality there, and that's been really nice. We've done things like mailers to new people in the community, and so we have a multifaceted system that goes out. I always think that the more personalized the marketing can be, the better.
Mhm.
We have 2 folks who work for us on our marketing team, and a big part of their focus is taking pictures of the team, doing testimonials from patients, getting reviews from patients, and really trying to make it feel to somebody who doesn't know us that they know us, even though they don't. Another thing that we've been doing more recently is so we have a membership club for patients who don't have insurance, and it's been consumer focused. We've
Mhm.
expanded upon that to actually try to focus on small businesses also. And the goal with that is a couple of things. One, it's for small businesses who can't afford dental insurance to be able to provide this membership club for our offices to their employees, and they can pay for it, they can share in the payment, or they can just kind of facilitate it and create awareness with their employees. But that's one of the areas that we've tried to build on. But two, it's helped us to kind of form relationships with those other local companies, because I think we're all, as a small business, we're kind of all in it together, whatever the circumstance might be in the world at the time. And having those connections and those, that as a referral base, and kind of being able to help each other with various initiatives, that's been really helpful as well.
Gotcha. So really quick, how many new patients are you getting a month normally, like a range from all practices?
How many new patients?
Yeah.
Um, Probably around 150, 160.
Wow. Okay. So then going back to the membership club for small businesses, this is good. That's really, really good. I like that. What do you do? Could you give us like, break it down to us? How does that work? You go in there and then you say what? How do you even find the small businesses?
So, well, it's been tough. We're trying to grow it. It's kind of a new venture, but basically, so we have our Beyond Dental club, which is our membership club, and then our Beyond Dental Business Club, which is the one that's focused on the businesses. And so, we have an employee that we've hired. His name is Tom. He's our business development director, and he's just a wonderful person in terms of just really, I don't know what the word is, just folksy and communicative. He's the kind of person that can kind of walk up to anybody and kind of start a conversation. And so we've been working to identify small businesses that we think fall into this category of maybe wanting to provide services, dental services to their employees, but can't. And so we've worked with the local chambers of commerce. They've been very helpful. We've done some of our own self-promotion through social media, LinkedIn, launched a website, and Facebook also. And I will say it's newer. I mean, I don't know where it's going to go. I think, on its face, it's a good idea. It makes sense to me, but we have to kind of see where it goes. But the kind of places that I think would be really the good candidates might be restaurants, and we visited a lot of them, like even like auto dealerships, places like that. Any place that probably employs less than 50 people and is not part of a larger entity.
Yeah, that's really smart. That's really, I like that. So you created a separate website just for the business membership club?
Yeah, I mean, everything's linked together, but yeah, it's a separate website for that. Yeah.
And that kind of explains everything like that is going down.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I mean, the terms and conditions aren't much different than our regular club. And so if you go to beyonddentalbusinessclub.com, I believe that's what takes you to the landing page. And on the front, it kind of shows, a couple folks working in a restaurant, and then it has all the details for, how it can help an employer, how it can help an individual, how to get more information, and just kind of the different membership clubs that would be part of it. Part of it's just for adult healthy members. Part of it's for members who need a little bit more periodontal care. And then for kids also. I mean, we try to make it available to the employees and their families.
Gosh. So the business membership club has different tiers then, or packages, or no, it's just like a whole zip?
Yeah. So basically, if you're an employer, right, say you're, Bob's Pizza House, we'd talk to whoever is, involved or whoever oversees the benefits there. We'd basically pitch the idea and say, we have 4 dental offices on the South Shore. They work really well together. It's a tight synergy. And basically they provide general care and specialty services all at a discount for your employees. If you're interested, if you'd like to pursue this and you want to have a dental benefit for your employees, you can choose to pay a portion of it, pay for all of it, or not pay for it at all. But we can kind of, we can facilitate that process, get your employees into the system. And then, for a monthly fee, the employees come to our offices, they get all of their preventative care taken care of. And anything that's restorative or specialty is a 15% discount. And so for the groups that we've spoken to, it's really resonated and we've gotten a lot of interest. And I think it is a real value add for them. But as I said, we're in the early stages.
Yeah. No, I can completely. I remember going ground marketing to like Marriott and Holiday Inn and Days Inn, the smaller, like they're not that small, but they're like, you know what I mean? And they were like, can you do this membership club for our the technicians, the housekeepers, things like that? Because I guess lower management wasn't able to provide insurance, only for upper management. And I was like, oh my gosh, yeah, let's make, you know what I mean? So this is a thing, you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Doing this.
I think there's a real need, and there's a huge portion of the population that doesn't have dental insurance. And right now, with everything else that's going on, they probably, for a lot of them, they don't want to spend a lot of their money on dental care, but it's an important part of healthcare that shouldn't be overlooked.
Yeah, definitely. And I wanted to ask you, when it comes to, I guess, opening up 4 practices for someone who's like in the beginning stages of this, how should our bank account look? Because I know like banks are kind of like, oh, you're having a second, third one, fourth one. You know what I mean? What should we be saving for, looking for, things like that?
So when we started out, and I don't know if it's the same now, but I think it's pretty similar. I mean, dental practices are a pretty good risk for banks. And I think
Mhm.
as an individual dentist, if you're trying to get a loan from a bank for a practice, it's pretty easy. And I think our first relationship was with Bank of America, and they made it, kind of as easy as it possibly could be. I mean, you say, okay, the practice is, for this much money, and the real estate's for this much money. And they essentially, at the time, at least for the practice, it was zero down, and they'd write you the loan. We have moved away from them to another local bank. And I think it's all about relationships. It's about that trust. I think that dentistry is a pretty safe industry for banks. And so, they'd rather be working with dental offices than, restaurants in a lot of cases, because, there's a lot more consistency and, in reliability. So for us going from one to two, that was a little bit of a stretch. And we found
Mhm.
one bank that's a kind of a local regional that's grown a lot too, a Vidya Bank based in Hudson, Mass. And they were the ones who would give us the loan so that we could take on that second practice. And we've worked with them since. They've been fantastic to us, and we continue to have a strong relationship with them. Um, you know, there is a limit to what a bank is going to lend you when you get to 3 and 4 practices. And so, you really have to make sure that the business is run in such a way where you can demonstrate that, you can cover your loans and cover your costs. And there is this portion that is profitable. But, one of the struggles that we've always had is that, okay, well, you want to be profitable enough so that you can make the bank comfortable, but at the same time, you want to continue to grow. And so, as much of that profit as you can, you want to kind of put back into the business. If you're taking your profit and putting it back into the business, it's kind of eroding that profit margin, which doesn't look as good to the bank. And so, it's a constant balance that you have to achieve. And I think that being able to have that relationship with the bank and being able to tell your story and developing that trust, and with them, we've worked with them now for 7 years. They trust us, or I hope they trust us enough to kind of extend, you know, more financing to us so that we can continue to grow.
Gotcha. So would you recommend us going to like just one specific, like building that? Here's my third practice, Bank of America. Here's my fourth practice, Bank of America. Or is it like, let's explore more options?
So I think if you can, it's better to stay with one bank. And, at its base, I think that that's sometimes counterintuitive, because you want to say, okay, well, you should have competition between banks, and you should set up a dynamic where, it's not guaranteed that you're going with them, and, let them compete on rates. But on the flip side of that, they're going to need to have enough, like at least the way we've run things, where everything is kind of on like our backs. My wife and we have ownership, and so everything kind of rests on us. The bank is going to want collateral. So if you're spread out among several banks, it makes it a lot harder, where they're going to say, okay, we'll give you the loan, but we're going to have to take out that loan, with that other bank. And that other bank may have some kind of arrangement where, if you're refinancing before 2 or 3 years, there's a penalty. And so for me, I think most of the banks are pretty competitive on rates, and I'd rather be with one bank to kind of avoid that. I'd rather kind of put it all out on the table for them. And if you have a good relationship, I think they figure it out.
Gotcha. Awesome. All righty, Brandon. So one last question I want to ask you throughout this process, I guess from the moment from practice number one, like before, when you guys were like walking with your agent and you're like, I think this is going to be it, till today, what's been some of the biggest struggles or fails or pitfalls that you've experienced?
So, a lot of groups you talk to, they make it sound easy and like it's a slam dunk, and you're looking at them and you kind of feel like, well, geez, man, they have it so easy. They've grown from one office to 4 offices. It's been no sweat, and they've been able to do it. I don't think it's easy. I don't think it's easy really for anybody. There are always going to be constant challenges and kind of bumps in the road, and twists in the road that you have to manage. I think that one of the things that we've learned is that, you can't ever settle in. You never have it figured out. I mean, maybe you have it figured out at one practice, and then you add a second one, and, whole different thing. And as I said, you add that third one, everything changes again. Right now we work really hard. I think it's really rewarding, and I like being able to provide great care to, as many patients as we can. I like to be able to provide a great working environment for as many employees as we can. But things in the market are going to constantly change. I mean, right now, the hiring environment is different than it ever has been. And that's my main challenge right now. I mean, right when you think like, oh gosh, we have a really great place to work. We train people, we provide a career for them. You have this era that we're in right now, and it's kind of like, well, I can't even find people to hire. I can't find a hygienist. I can't find an assistant. I can't find a front desk person. So that's a huge challenge, just being constantly on your toes and evolving. I mean, whether it's the evolution of technology or it's the evolution of, the human resources environment. I think the biggest challenge is just, pushing yourself to constantly learn, constantly evolve, and to really to roll with the punches. But, I think a lot of people make it look easy. And maybe it's easy for them, but there are challenges. And I think you have to just kind of be able to let things kind of slide off your back sometimes and just, roll with it and be confident in yourself and do the work.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Right now, that's the especially now, right? Like you said, kind of post-COVID, kind of not, but like now it's getting tougher. You know what I mean? With everything.
It's not easy at the moment. It will get easier. And, there are elements right now that, I probably don't think about that were my biggest challenges, a few years ago, but, you have to roll with the punches and you have to kind of figure out the best way. And that's why I think you need to be working with the best vendors. You need to work with people who are forward thinking, and you need to have a good network to get ideas from and to bounce ideas off of. The example of the business club for us is one area where we're trying to evolve and we're trying to put something out there in the market that's new, so that we can continue to grow despite some of the challenges that are around us.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. That's really, really good. Awesome, Brandon. Thank you so much for being with us. It was a pleasure. But before we say goodbye, can you tell our listeners where they can find you?
Yeah, so we're in Hanson, Abington, Cohasset, and Weymouth, Massachusetts. Beyond Dental Health is our name. BeyondDentalHealth.com is our website. We're serving patients in and around the South Shore, general dentistry and specialty services. And for anybody who wants to contact me individually, you're more than welcome to contact me by email, bfreeman@legacydso.com, or by phone, if you'd like, 617-699-6801. Thank you, Michael, so much.
Awesome. So guys, that's all going to be in the show notes below if you want to reach out to Brandon, pick his brain a little bit more. And Brandon, thank you so much for being with us. It was a pleasure, and we'll hear from you soon.
Likewise. Thank you.